And so it's so interesting, right? That like some of these preconceived notions and images of like who we're supposed to be have been imprinted.
Yeah.
And that's not actually who we are. Now I'm doing it. I'm like, I want you to do this. And then they'll do it. And I was like, did you feel the difference? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, oh, it's because I'm helping you ground right now and get comfortable in your own skin, because we're conditioned to not be as comfortable in our own skin, right? Remember, like, why did I start this business? Why do I show up for work every day to work with this team? Then like there's this intrinsic energy connection that happens. And then that's when something significant shifts, right?
Nathan, Morgan, welcome to Sweaty Goals.
Thanks, Robert. What a fun morning, man.
Oh, man.
A morning like no other.
Yeah, what'd you just experience?
Well, it's my first time over here. This is really like our first time connecting more than like 2 minutes in person. And we went from like 0 to 100, which is also my vibe and way to go. And we did a cold plunge. We did some exercise, and then we did this breath work, which was really amazing and next level, and then jotted some goals down.
Yeah.
And then got to know each other in the process.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like it could be exponential, man.
Oh, that's what it's designed to do. Nathan, tell me about you.
Yeah. So I'm from Nashville originally, moved back to Nashville about 11 years ago. Worked for the Nashville Business Journal for a little bit, and then went out on my own 6 years ago. I have a background in photojournalism, telling people's stories for the last 20 years. And like I was telling you, kind of transitioning from, just making people look good and powerful and approachable and their best, to getting a little bit deeper and helping them feel that again inside, right? A lot of founders, a lot of people in the world, right? We kind of lose track of like, why do I do what I do? What am I getting up for in the morning? And so kind of helping people bring those coals that are maybe smoldering underneath the ash a little bit, right? Bring those together, blow on them, catch that fire, get that fire going again. And that's what's lighting me up the most lately.
Yeah. Was there a time when you weren't lit up?
100%. Yeah, that's shifted just in the last, like most significantly in the last like year and a half. And then really was like on a downward trajectory 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, I went to a 12-step recovery program, 2-week inpatient program in the middle of the woods in Kentucky. My drug of choice was workaholism. It's very applauded. I don't know if you've heard about it. A lot of people celebrate it and praise it. And codependency. And kind of went in there because I had just kind of lost track of, well, I was just self-loathing, right? I was like, what am I even doing all this stuff for? And then slowly that trajectory started to shift. And now I kind of feel like I'm on the upside down slide.
Wow, that's great. What was the catalyst? Was there an event or a moment that you're like, this is just not working?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I love to ask that question when I'm on the other side of the camera. I think it was just a series. I was just looking around and like, man, my kids, I'm having a negative impact on their energy and their life. I mean, not broadly, maybe necessarily, right? But I was like repeating the things that I was trying to avoid, right? And not being the partner I wanted to be. And creating more chaos and havoc with my team than I wanted to. But at the root of it was I didn't like myself, didn't love myself. And so doing that slow trajectory shift of like, all right, I had to have connection. I had to have people around me who believed in me and who I was gonna go do this for them until I was doing it for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, this transformation for you, has it changed the way you do your work and your personal? Like, how has it shifted your work that you do?
That's another good question. It shifted everything for me. So, what I was saying earlier is like, I previously, and this is kind of like, I believe that for me at least, but I feel like for others, like most of us are doing what we're doing because of lots of things in the past, right? That led us to this moment. So for me, I was like image management. I was making sure, we're dialing in things and making sure your tie's just right, making sure you look the part, right? Putting good light on your face, et cetera, having you stand a certain way to project an image. And that's because image management was a big part of my life growing up, right? Instead of, or in addition to like being like, hey, like what's happening inside of you right now? Like, how are you feeling, man? Like what's going on? Like, let's connect actually. And so being able to kind of pause and slow down and have conversations around that, because what would happen on photo shoots, right? Like I was always heading in this direction. Like we would get off in a conversation and I would be, having this deep dive conversation. We're supposed to be doing a photo shoot. And it's like, well, we got to go. I got to take your picture. And now we still do that. We still do photos, branded content, photo, video, right? Corporate portraits, construction, architecture, all those things. But what's very exciting is to like slow down and be like, hey, what's going on inside? How did you get started in this? What did you like to do when you were a kid? I bet that there's a correlation between what little Robert was into, what little Nathan was into, what grown-up Robert and grown-up Nathan are doing today. And between processes and profits, it's really easy to lose track of the purpose and the passion, right?
You mean people are stuck in their heads?
I mean, some of us get a little stuck in our heads, and I'm not above it, right? Like there's still contraction, expansion that happens.
You can see that in somebody's body. Like you can see it on their face.
100%.
You can see it in their posture. You can see it in their voice. You can just, you can probably close your eyes and have them in your presence and be like, dude, you're stuck in your head. Yeah.
So it was interesting. We did a photo shoot yesterday, and this is like, I was doing these things subconsciously and having people adjust their body and how they stand and literally like how their feet are placed to look better in their face. Right. And now I'm doing it. I'm like, I want you to do this. And then they'll do it. And I was like, did you feel the difference? And they're like, yeah. And it's like, oh, it's because I'm helping you ground right now and get comfortable in your own skin, because we're conditioned to not be as comfortable in our own skin, right?
That's one of the reasons that when I try to get groups together, or like we did earlier, is when you breathe together, you start to synchronize together, you start to really connect, get out of the thinking, worrying, fear into, oh man, what are we making together? What are we creating together? What is this? Why are we together? And help bring that out. When you are with someone and you're getting your master storyteller, right? Mm-hmm. So when you are doing that exercise, what do you see that has become your pure process when you're working with clients that makes it Nathan's brand? Yeah. On the photo side or the kind of the brand identity side? Yeah, brand identity.
It's a lot of curiosity, right? It's shifting from criticism to curiosity and being courageous. And then let's consistently ask some questions. And then I've got a series of questions we'll go through. And then between these guided questions and my intuition, we'll then kind of sniff out, if you will, the story of hey, this is why you do what you do. And, oh, look at this thing that happened to you when you were 10 or 4 or 8. And look at these other influences that happened in your life. Of course, today you're a storyteller and, of course you're a serial entrepreneur. Of course you like to help people. Of course you want to connect people and connect the who's, right? All of these things make sense when we slow down, we go back and we look from the beginning, okay, this was the beginning of the book. Of course, this is going to be where we are in the book today. And that's co-regulation thing. You're probably familiar with it. And I don't have the exact stat off my head, but so many of us have been programmed to do it alone, right? Just suck it up, go. what actually, like, there's a physical thing that is happening right now between the two of us. And we're consuming less energy because we're co-regulated and we're in our bodies and we're synced up. And that is like the beautiful brilliance of like community and being able to do things together and shifting from competing to collaborating, right?
Yeah. And you know what kind of came to me when you were talking about that is you're really inviting them to release a little ego.
Yeah.
And to be their true, authentic version of themselves, because that's the powerful version of us.
100%.
It's not necessarily the image that we're trying to portray. And I don't think, at least I'm just speaking from my own experience, I want to speak my actual being.
Yes.
And because I want to attract people that would find me.
Yes.
Valuable,
attractive, right? All these things.
Yeah. And get to connect with that version. I don't want them to connect with someone that's not real.
No, 100%.
Because I don't want to play not real again. I've done it enough.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. I've tried that. It's not fun. And
yeah.
And so something I talk a lot about is your unique ability.
Yeah. Could I respond to that real quick?
Yeah.
I feel like there's this, for me at least, there's this shift in awareness from this kind of strictly masculine energy to being aware of this like feminine energy that's within all of us. And instead of me cold calling and going after and hunting and pursuing this thing, I could actually practice just being my own authentic self, amplify and magnify who I am, and then let those people come to me.
They will.
And they will. And what that won't happen is if I'm putting up a mask or a facade, right? I'll keep attracting somebody who doesn't get me. But when I'm like unapologetically myself, it's like, hey, this is who you saw. Oh, this is also who's going to show up. You want to work with that energy? Yes, you do. Like, let's go, let's dance.
You know, what you're reminded me too is like someone experiencing that with you, right? You're reminding them who they are, which they forget. They forgot. Mm-hmm. They forgot they used to love to dance. That was me. I used to love to dance, right?
Come on, Robert.
And then I stopped, right? Why did I stop? Well, I can start again, right? Yeah. And so when you're spending time with them, so it really becomes not really like a session of branding. It's just a session of being with you so they can be with themselves and realize, I'm pretty freaking cool.
Yes.
And to be more of that.
Yes.
And then to help them like, all right, this was not a branding session. This is a me session. Be more me session.
Yeah.
And then you kind of document that. And then when they get their content back, whether it's a video or
the brand guideline,
it's like they can really feel into that energy and go back to that moment. Like close your eyes, hold that image of that experience and realize that could be your moment. That's where you're like, oh, I'm really vibing it myself.
Yes.
And so you can take that little bit of moment of connection and you can sit there and go back to that moment and go realize, remember who you are.
Yeah.
And then feel that energy before you stepped into that important meeting, before you got into that, stepped on stage, you got that big client you're going to be in front of. Go in the bathroom, power pose, and like imagine Nathan's face pumping you up and reminding you who you are and who you're supposed to be.
100%.
And when you're in that flow, then you walk out and you're not worried. You're not anxious. You're not like, what am I going to talk about? No. When we are in our unique ability, our words come from our heart and we don't even think about them. They just flow. And it's like floating. And, it's also called heaven on earth. And who doesn't want to live in heaven? And we can do it here on earth when we are just ourselves.
Just ourselves. You watched Ted Lasso?
Oh, love Ted Lasso.
Oh my God. That clip where the Rockstar owner, there's this scene where like she sees herself in the mirror and she'll like hug herself and then she turns into dragon at the same time. And to me, like that's like the perfect example, right? Of like nurturing our inner child and then just claiming our power of who we are today.
Wow.
Like that tension is really big. And you've mentioned a couple of things that made me think of one or two other things if I can share.
Yeah.
Like you talked about, like sometimes we'll kind of forget who we are, or it's not so much about putting this mask on. Like I did a photo shoot like 6 months ago, and I was guiding this subject where I thought they needed to be for this pose. And then we got there, and I was like, I always say like, this is collaborative. If it, like, let me know how it's feeling. And he's like, yeah, this doesn't feel like me. I was projecting this very masculine energy onto this guy in this pose. And he ended up kind of shifting into something like more like how I'm sitting right now. He's like, this is me. I was like, yeah, this is you. And so it's so interesting, right? That like some of these preconceived notions and images of like who we're supposed to be have been imprinted.
Yeah.
And that's not actually who we are. And the whole idea, like things aren't black and white. Like some days you can be like, we can be broing it up and doing this like, rah masculine energy thing. And then some days I might want to put a colorful scarf on,
Yeah.
and just rest and be slow and nurturing and comforting.
Something that when I think about like powerful videos that shift thinking, I think about Super Size Me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching that with my fiance at the time, my wife, and how that video shifted my relationship with fast food.
Yeah.
And I have seen since so many other powerful documentaries and storytelling to articulate a thought that creates, honestly, a feeling of energy and emotion behind an important subject. So tell me what your thoughts are on storytelling and video and how powerful it can be.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in like the purest form, right? Like art, video, it evokes an emotion and it leaves me curious and it can build community, right? So like at the heart of what I'm doing, like that is it, right? Like I want to like evoke some emotion, create some curiosity and build community, because community leads to change, right? And when you have that fire inside of you and you're not looking outside for something, right? Whether it's looking outside your organization, looking at someone else, any way, like the definition of codependency is one definition is an outer reach for inner security, right? And so if I can tap into that in here, right? And remember, like, why did I start this business? Right? Like, why do I show up for work every day to work with this team?
Yeah.
Right? Then like there's this intrinsic energy and connection that happens. And this phrase has been really powerful for me. We talked about improv is yes and, right? And one of my favorite therapists, he says, why indicts, what happens invites. So in an interview we'll be doing, a lot of times if somebody cries on my set, which happens a lot because I'm going deep and I'm connecting with people's core essence, right? I'll say, what's happening for you? And they will feel invited to like share what's happening. And then they emote, and then their guard is down, and then they share their most vulnerable version with me. And then that's when something significant shifts, right? Like that's when they just kind of like let me share the pureness of like what their story is, whether it's literally like building closets or, designing a $100 million project, et cetera, like getting connected to like why we do what we do has been big.
Yeah. And getting that put out on a video to articulate that message. What do you know besides getting them to really open up and really authentically share those things, like getting to the root of why they are doing the thing they do. What else do you feel is important in that whole exercise?
In addition to getting connected to why they do what they do, it's being able to articulate like how that is making a difference and how what they do matters and like how they're unique.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Could I ask you a question or two?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, because I'm grateful for others who make space to not only like do what we did this morning, but then to capture others' essences and their stories. Why is this important for you, Robert? Why have you gone through so much time and energy to set up this booth, to put people in the hot seat, to amplify and magnify their stories? And what's happening for you when I ask that question?
Yeah. So for me, when I sold my business, I had lost a lot of my own identity. And I really loved helping young men and women that would start or work for me. My purpose in that business was to do a 90-minute meeting with all my new hires. And I literally taught them the things that no one teaches them. That they have the power to create their own life and do whatever they want. You know, I would say that vast majority of them came from single parent households, most with no fathers. And media is telling them one thing, these non-truths, you know, that like, listen, take ownership of your life. And if you really want to be successful, is learn how to look someone in the eye and connect, how to have a conversation, how to really have a meaningful conversation, how to create value. And, you know, I taught a process around that, of how to create more value. And that's going to dictate your value in your bank account, is how much value you're creating for others. Because we're here to help others at the end of the day. So when I lost the business, lost my identity, went through this major depression, and I'm literally in the middle of transformation. And I'm trying to become who I'm trying to make more of me here with you. We're by the water because water conducts electricity. This water where we are right now is a giant battery for the city. And when you just let go, there's a metaphor here with the dam. When you just allow the water to do what water does, be energy, right? It creates power and powers a whole freaking city. Not only that, the water flows to the ocean. So everything that's created here through conversation, through inspirational, to thinking about our vision, gets flowed to the earth to magnify and be more. You know, people came to Nashville in the 1920s because of a radio station, WSM. It stands for We Shield Millions. And for since the 1920s, Nashville became this place where storytellers, where speakers, where journalists, people making and creating news along with music. Music City, but we are more than just Music City. We're the spoken word. People sat around their radios because of Nashville. They came to Nashville to have access to the antenna. But I am realizing that there's an antenna in all of us. So we are the antenna. And this is to bring people back, help them find their light, help them realize that this life is meaningful and it can be powerful. But we got to engage. We got to engage with our dreams. We got to step outside of being small anymore. We got to step into our greatness. And I want to do that together. I don't want to do it alone. I don't want to do this journey. There's a mountaintop of my vision where I'm headed, and you have a mountaintop. I want to be your Sherpa. I want to carry some bags for you. And then when you're not living up to your expectations because you encountered fear, you will be fearful. There will be an obstacle, which will be your way. And I'll remind you, my friend, this obstacle you're facing is your way. Like, it is what is going to make you powerful. Like, love on this obstacle. You lost your best client. Great.
What's in the way is the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this place is to manufacture our dreams. My 10-year vision has helped 100 entrepreneurs achieve their vision so I can live in your dreams. That's what I do. That's what this place is for.
I dig it, man. I love it. And I love the antenna analogy. Have you used that analogy much before?
It came to me like the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And you want to know why it resonates deeply? My grandfather was broadcasting on that antenna.
Wow.
Yeah, he was an old country music singer.
Wow.
Back in the Grand Ole Opry days.
Really? What was his name?
George Morgan.
Wow. That is incredible.
Yeah, so like it resonates deeply.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
This is so good.
It's so
Nathan,
good.
we got to go. This was awesome.
So much,
it's time for breakfast.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you
for
so
bringing
much
your energy.
for inviting me. Thanks for seeing my energy. Thanks for amplifying it, magnifying it.